Alright, still haven't figured out the Bluetooth mic thing because I got home last night and just kind of crashed. I didn't look up shit. I didn't do anything. But anyway. So this one, I guess, is going to be, I'll call it part of the character creation series of videos, which I guess never really end. But this one is going to be about like really long-term stuff that you plan for your character. And I'm going to use an example or two to talk about how those types of things require, or at least I've seen a lot of discussion about those types of things requiring a good amount of DM buy-in. It requires your DM to invest in this concept you're laying down and almost flesh it out for you, because I mean, really you should be working together, but you know, the DM sets up the world, so it by nature kind of requires more work on their part. But again, I'm going to use an example, and the only thing I have to go for examples, like I've said in previous videos, is Critical Role, and I'm going to use Campaign 1 Percy, that character. He's got a pretty good example of this. That character is heir to the throne of this, like, it's not really a throne because he's not a king. It's just like a city-state. But he's heir to the throne of this city-state. And what do you call it? Years ago, he was kicked out of there, or he fled rather, because his whole family was murdered in a violent coup. And he wants to get back there and seek revenge. So what that player's DM ended up doing was take that concept, and yeah, there's a little bit of like eventually, yeah, we'll get back there, and your character can do their violent revolution revenge to get back their kingdom. But the DM ended up tying it into the greater story, and those the figures that committed that coup, that initial coup, and murdered Percy's family, ended up being extremely important to the overall plot, and came back much later. But regardless, so what am I talking about for my characters? Actually, for the 3 characters I'm playing now, there's examples of this. Like laying long-term plans. Like for Henich, my Lizard Folk Ranger, I have some plans in place for him to eventually become affiliated with the homebrew god Dai, which I believe I've talked about before. And that's going to be a relatively slow process, like a gradual thing. He'll, because he understands that god as the classic lizard folk god Semuanya, but it's going to be revealed over time that it's actually Dai, or at least the lizard folk interpretation of Dai in this set. And whether that results in him multi-classing into cleric, druid, paladin, anything, he might not multi-class at all. He doesn't need to, but it's just something set up for his story. And that's a simple example. And you've got a similar one with the character I'm playing in the Curse of Strahd. I keep saying Scrod. Curse of Strahd game, Senlir, who's a executioner of the Raven Queen. This character is pretty new. I've only played him 2.5 sessions, because the first session I played him in was pretty short. But overall, there's going to be stuff there. I don't know what it's going to be. It's laid, the groundwork is laid, and whatever that DM kind of wants to do with it. And I have some ideas, but not a whole lot needs to be done on that front right this second. It can wait a while. But my other character, Raskris, who I'm playing in the Ugliest Man Alive campaign, he has some long-term stuff. in particular, he has his family set of swords that are essentially going to be his main weapon throughout the whole campaign. And potentially they're going to grow and change or gain power or something once he gets the third missing sword. But I don't know exactly what they're going to be, and I haven't thought about it a whole lot, because it's been like Raskus is just now starting to use them, and now I'm starting to think about exactly what their purpose is. And their purpose could be a lot of different things, like comparing it to different examples of like really special swords, and that like swords that have explicit purposes and destinies throughout any kind of narrative. Like maybe these swords' destiny is like wrapped up in that city-state entirely, and they are destined always to like cleave through the rot that might perpetuate and threaten the city. And maybe Amrock's betrayal in that, like in this character's backstory, was maybe it was the swords pushing Amrock to eliminate the Lagash, because the Lagash was rotten. His rule was rotten. Maybe he thought it was rotten, and it was actually the coup attempt that was corrupted and harmful. Something like that. Maybe these swords are just there to... Maybe these swords are just tools of justice to defend the weak, but a sword is always a sword. That is a central theme I definitely want for this character. That even if you intend a sword as a tool of justice to protect the weak, at the end of the day, it is still a sword, and such. And all a sword does is kill. Can't pass yet. It's like a big truck on the highway. Yeah, and all a sword does is kill. And I think that's an important... Like, I really like that. I really like that idea. Yeah, I could have passed, I guess. But... yeah, or maybe these swords are like the mortal blades from Sekiro. They're designed to cut down immortals. Like, that's kind of out of nowhere. Maybe they eliminate chaos, and that could deal with Uma. Maybe they'll end up being important to Uma's plight, and they'll be integral in an unexpected way. Because, yeah, like the Ornagier family has always been very, very honor-bound and lawful and organized and regimented. So maybe the swords are just they're swords of law. They're there to eliminate chaos, and that's their main purpose. It could be anything. But by giving my DM these swords, like, hey, these swords are very important to this character, and there is something important about them. I don't know exactly what it is. Maybe we can workshop it. I've got these ideas, which I'm presenting in this video, I guess. This is the start of that conversation. But, yeah, like by presenting, like, for these long-term things, like maybe you more or less present your DM with like half of a plot, or just threads and hooks to start with, and then the DM can start pulling on them. Because while, like I said earlier, it does require DM buy-in and it requires some work on their part, in the short time that I've DM'd myself, this is the type of stuff I would love for a player to do. Like, my players have given me some threads just by being parts of organizations. That's a lot for me that I can just pull on and start utilizing. So, yeah, creating like long-term long-term narrative threads like this. And it's not the same as like the last video I talked about with major and minor motivations, but they've got some, they tie in there, they're similar concepts, and your motivations should align with these narrative goals. But these long-term narrative threads are more or less like, when you look back at a campaign, these are the first things you think about for that character. Like, that's one of the most important things about the character, like their whole overarching journey and what happened. Like, where this character came from, went, and ended up. So, yeah, I guess that's a short little video on some concepts about narrative threads. If my DM is watching this, talking about like long-term narrative threads, especially with that particular character and those particular swords, we could always workshop more about that. Yeah.